Happy day everyone. I am Priyanka Sudhakaran from my final year BA Journalism from MOP Vaishnav College for Women.
Hi, I'm Ketra Bala, student of 3rd BA Journalism from MOP Vaishnav College for Women.
Today we have a very special guest with us, a 1985 batch officer from the Corps of Electronic and Mechanical Engineers, General AV Ramesh. He is a proud alumnus of the Indian Military Academy and has served in the Indian Army for over 37 years. From leading strategic positions to battlefield experiences and currently cyber frontiers post-retirement, he is a man who's done it all. We are honored to have you here with us today, sir, and it is a pleasure for us. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
You have served in the Indian Army for over 37 years. How did it feel when you wore the uniform for the first time?
Yeah, Priyanka, to be honest with you, it was a kind of an accident when I joined the Indian Army, and I joined the Army without even knowing what this organization was all about. And the first time I wore uniform, this was, to the date it is 40 years before, and it's a good feeling. But actually it starts sinking into you as you stay inside the organization. And we always say in Army that, Army is not a career, it's a way of life. You start living that kind of a life and it gets into your system, I would say right up to your level of your DNA, and that's what makes an army person.
Sir, your career spans engineering, military and strategy. How did your background in mechanical and management engineering shape your approach towards problem solving during operational challenges?
You see, what happens is most of the army equipment which you get to hear from the newspapers or media and all that, we are all capital equipment with a lifespan of almost 40 to 50 years. And they are expensive equipment. So we need to plan for the sustenance of this equipment through its entire life cycle. I'll give you a very simple example. You must have heard about this equipment called the tank T-72, which is also called the Ajaya tank, or the Bhishma, which is the tank T-90. T-72 came to us in 1979. Okay. Today we are in 2025 and this tank is still in service. We have almost 2000 plus 2400 tanks still in service. So this has to be sustained over its entire lifespan. And you have to keep it mission reliable and operational ready at all times, which means there are periodic interventions, something similar to how you take your car or a scooter to the garage for a service. In this case, what we do, we bring the product back to a base repair workshop or a base repair depot, we strip it apart, we reassemble, we replace most of the components, and sometimes the product also undergoes a technology upgrade. So you can't have the same technology surviving in the organization for more than 4.5 decades. T90 came to us in 2001. We are in 2025 now, which is 25 years, 2.5 decades. India as a country can't afford to discard equipment so very quickly. So we will sustain this equipment for the next 15 to 20 years. This calls for intense planning. During the service of the equipment, you need to manage, and also all along you have to keep one thing in mind. As a nation, we have to optimize on our resources, whether it is expenditure or anything for that matter. We can't afford to spend an infinite amount of money like what the other developed nations do. So that is where the skills in engineering, the skills in management and operations research, everything comes into play.
Sir, I am curious about something. How was the involvement of women when you had begun your service? Is it changed, and what is your personal opinion on the growing involvement of women in the armed forces?
I will trace back a little bit of history also. Most of you are aware of the Azad Hind Fauj. You heard about it. Netaji, that is Indian National Army of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Azad Hind Fauj had a Rani of Jhansi regiment, consisting of women entirely, right? So as far as India is concerned, I will come to what we are as far as Indian Army slightly later. In India, women started entering armed forces in 1958. They initially came to the medical corps, the Army Medical Corps. Subsequently, what happened in 1991, they started coming into the Indian Navy, and in 1992, they started coming into Indian Army. If you move the date line forward, somewhere around 2020, a decision was taken based on representation by the women officers. Approximately 577 women officers were given permanent commission, right? Typically, initially the women used to come on a short service, which means 5 years. So then it was 5 plus 5 plus 4, total of 14 years of engagement, and then they were required to go. Based on a representation, and as we as a nation were also growing we realized the importance of having women as part of the system. You asked a very good question. When I joined army, women were not there in the mainstream, right? They were there only in the medical fraternity and the nursing service. Somewhere in 91, Navy started, and in 92, we started bringing in. And the way army has done it is in a very phased manner. Initially, the women were brought into services. I mean, I also belong to one of the service. So the women were brought to my service, that is Corps of Electronics and Mechanical Engineers, the Army Service Corps, Army Ordnance Corps, to start with. Then they moved the benchmark to combat support arms. They started coming to Corps of Engineers, Corps of Signals. Okay, they are combat support arms. So today in Indian Army, apart from infantry, mechanized infantry and the armored corps, women can get into any of the verticals. That is one. They can get permanent commission, number two. Number three, somewhere in 2021, almost 108 women were promoted as commanding officers, which is at the level of the rank of colonel. Now, to tell you the achievements of the women officers as far as armed forces is concerned, you must have watched the briefing of Sindoor on the media. You had two women officers, very distinguished people. One was Vyomika Singh and the other was Sophia Qureshi, Colonel Sophia Qureshi, who were confidently handling the briefing. That itself kind of an indication as to where the women have reached in Indian Army, Navy or Air Force for that matter. Another thing, if you've been following the newspapers, we had, I think 2-3 weeks back or something, there was an article in paper about a women officer named Asta Punia. She is the first maritime fighter aircraft pilot. So last Republic Day, if you remember, it's very difficult to remember, nevertheless, in case you remember, there were two women officers who were pilots of Rafale. We have, I think her name was Shivangi and the other person was Avani Chaturvedi. Recently, there were two women officers from Navy who went on a solo sailing expedition around the world on a sailing vessel. They were completely independent. You understand what the complexity of a sailing vessel? Two women officers independently handled. They are, one was Rupa and the other was Dilna. One Lieutenant Commander Rupa and Lieutenant Rupa. They circumnavigated the world. They covered almost 25,000 odd nautical miles, which roughly translates to around 40,000 kilometers, all by themselves. In fact, they were flagged in a very ceremonial manner in Goa. So, achievement of women officers in the armed forces, I would say the list is only increasing by the day. And also, just to add one more thing, we have our women officers going on United Nations contingents abroad. Okay, and they also started getting all kinds of gallantry awards and other things. Again, sometime last year, I remember the first women officer went to Siachen Glacier, which is possibly one of the toughest places to serve. So I will say that in no way that they are anywhere less than the counterparts, that is the men, and it takes time for the organization to grow in steps, which is what is happening, and progressively you will find, see, Navy has inducted women into their warships also. Okay, INS Vikramaditya, which is an aircraft carrier, has got a women officer as part of its crew. Okay, next thing that we have started doing it sometime in 2021 onwards, this happened was women have started entering the other ranks also. Navy has inducted around 300 people through their training center in INS Chilka. Chilka is a lake which is in Orissa. Okay, Army inducted women for their Corps of Military Police. So it is happening, and I would say as an organization we are evolving, we are able to accept, and they are excelling themselves. So they are no way less compared to the men.
So, Disha Bharat's work on values and nation building resonates with your ideals that you upheld in uniform. What drives your involvement in mentoring and guiding young minds today?
You know, I have to tell this to you. It will be a long answer, but nevertheless I will tell. My interaction with Disha Bharat sometime started last year, the month of June or July. Now, Disha Bharat wanted to do this. Last year was the silver jubilee of Kargil Vijay Divas, and they wanted to celebrate it in a grand way and in a very appropriate way. So, what Disha Bharat did was very appealing to me, was primarily reaching out to the student fraternity, that is the colleges, and through the colleges, the schools, which means kind of train the trainer to the college people, and then the college fraternity, that is the students, people like you, would reach out to 5 to 6 schools to take the message of not only Kargil war, right? Kargil war was primarily the important thing, because the current generation was born after Kargil, right? So most people possibly may not know, and it will just get resigned to some 1 or 2 pages in the history textbook. So Disha Bharat took it upon themselves as a mission, and I made a very small contribution to them in this mission. So I am very inspired by the way these people are doing, particularly reaching out to the young minds who are eventually going to be the future leaders, whether it is in the political side or in the corporate side. And it is important that they are imbibed with the right values, and they are also made aware of the rich culture and heritage of a nation like ours. This is something which Disha Bharat has been doing, and they are doing, I will say, a fabulous job. So if I can play a very small part in whatever they are doing, I will be very happy.
So the year 1999 saw Kargil conflict and 2025 saw Operation Sindoor, and you sir have seen both of them. Is there any incident over the course of years that have stuck with you?
When Kargil happened, I was in the army headquarters, so I was not there in the front line when it happened. But what is important, people like you especially and the school children of today need to take the messages. We lost, I would say, 527 people sacrificed their lives, all right, and approximately 1300 people got injured in the operations. This started sometime in the month of May of 1999, and 26th of July, when Kargil Divas is now celebrated as the Vijay Kargil Divas, it was, the operation was declared as completely successful. And this was a true testimony of young leadership. And this was an operation where, if you do a little bit of statistical analysis, bulk of the people who sacrificed their lives were the younger lot. Some of the names is known, very familiar to you. Manoj Pandey, you must have heard about. Vikram Batra, okay, on the Sher Shah movie, if you have seen that movie, is inspiration from Vikram Batra's actions. Then we have 2 living PVCs now, one is Sanjay Kumar and Yogendra Yadav. Both of them have retired from army. Nevertheless, they were the 4 people who were awarded PVC. A lot of Mahavir Chakra, Veer Chakra was also awarded. It was a very tough operation, conducted in very tough terrain and in inhospitable weather conditions. So we must ever be so grateful to that lot of people who were able to get that territory back to us, because it was strategically very important for us. The heights which were occupied by the Pakistanis or adversary was dominating the national highway between Srinagar and Leh. Should that highway get cut off, the supplies of rations, ammunition, fuel, oil, lubricants, everything to Leh would have been a big challenge. So we must be grateful. That's one of the reasons why we should keep remembering Kargil. Now getting back to Sindoor, right? Operation Sindoor was a very defining moment for our nation. And 3 things stand out. If you remember the speech which the Prime Minister had given on the 12th of May, there were 3 things that stood out of his speech. First, he says that any terrorist act will receive a strong and a resolute response from us as a nation. Second thing he says is, we will no longer be intimidated by the nuclear threshold threat of Pakistan. And the third thing what he said is, both the terrorist and the state or the nation that hosts and support the terrorist will receive the same action. And if you remember the speech which he had given immediately after the 26th of April when Pahalgam happened, he said that we will search the people from wherever, whichever corner of the world they are. And I would say this was the first time, it was a non-contact, kinetic display of our capability. We did not have anybody indulging in a hand-to-hand combat of the likes of Kargil. So that way it was distinctly different. It was a display of our technology, our intelligence gathering, precision targets. You can go talk on and on about Sindoor. But yes, Sindoor was fundamentally different from Kargil. Kargil was won on the strength of people. Of course, there were people behind in Sindoor also, but Sindoor was strategy, technology, precision and kinetic.
Sir, as you mentioned about Kargil Vijay Divas, I'm asking this. What does Kargil Vijay Divas personally mean to you 25 years later, and now you are seeing new generation coming up in uniform?
No, part of it is what I told you earlier. It is important that we constantly remind ourselves and tell the younger generation, especially people like you who were the post-Kargil generation, people like us who were born before and who were there during that thing, we understand the kind of sacrifices the people have, soldiers have made. So it is important for us to remember the sacrifices which the soldiers have made. And I would also say that it is also important to take this message across to schools and treat our soldiers with respect, right? Whether it is in the sense that the people who serve the nation, they deserve the kind of special place in the society. When I just say is give them the kind of respect that they deserve, and always acknowledge the fact that they have given their today for our tomorrow. That is something we should, in fact, in Kohima there is a war memorial, which is the Second World War memorial. There it is written, for your tomorrow we gave our today. So we should be grateful to them that we as a nation are strong and we were able to get that territory back because of the sacrifices made by people.
Sir, if there's any message that you could give your younger self, what would it be?
I really don't know. I would like to join army again, frankly, because I couldn't think of any other option. And having been in this system for almost close to 4 decades, I am not able to visualize what would I have been had I gone elsewhere. Yes, in case I am given a chance to go back, join, and possibly do this even better.
So, during your service, you must have handled several weapon systems. In recent years, India is increasing its defense expenditure and focusing towards indigenous defense production. What is your perspective towards this shift in self reliance in defense?
I have to take you back to 2020, if you remember when COVID happened. So this Atmanirbharta mission was launched, right? That famous symbol. Atmanirbharta, there is a logo. I'm sure most of us can recognize that logo made of gears and mechanical things. It's a kind of a tiger which is there. So that is the time India realized that self-reliance is extremely important, all right? And Op Sindoor is a good demonstration of indigenous effort. If you've been following the papers very closely, couple of days back there was an article in the paper of 2 youngsters from BITS Pilani Hyderabad campus who have assembled and given kamikaze means they're suicidal drones to Indian army. So that is the importance of indigenization. And we also realize as a nation, we should be able to stand on our own 2 feet, not have to depend on anybody else. Because the problem when you import a weapon system is the software and the technology, the core technology will continue to be retained by the parent country. There are very good chances that the country may refuse to give you upgrades or he may refuse to share the source code and other things to you. So it is important we become self-reliant. The seeds were sown sometime, I would say the serious efforts have started in 2020 onwards, and we are moving towards self-reliance, a demonstration of which was given during Op Sindoor also. BrahMos is Indian made, Akash is Indian made. Then there are a whole lot of other weapon systems. Your T90 can be made in India. Lot of these things have now started being made in India, and I would say that is the flavor of the future. And as far as defense expenditure is concerned, let me just touch upon that. You need to understand that this kind of a capability, what you saw demonstration during Sindoor, just take your mind back to 25th of April. Would we, any one of us, visualized that something like Sindoor is going to happen, that India will have to respond with this kind of quantum of force and other thing? Let us say we were not ready. What would have happened? If by April 25th and 26th Pahalgam happened, what would we have done? Other than making a lot of noise in the media, we would have possibly not been able to do anything. Because we had developed that capability and because we are constantly training, we are constantly equipping and constantly trying to upgrade our technology weapon systems, we were able to respond in a manner which we wanted to. So the capability development of the defense is a very important aspect for which we need the money, and therefore the defense expenditure is something which we need to see as a nation building activity. All of us will have to play a role. The industry has got a job to do and they are doing a fantastic job. Academia, people like you, and then the armed forces and the research institutions, whether it is DRDO, CSIR. By the way, in Op Sindoor, it was a whole of nation approach. Everybody had a contribution to make, whether it is CSIR, it is the DRDO, or it is the industry, all of them chipped in. So that's the importance of defense expenditure for you.
Of course, we are developing stronger and wider each and every day. So, finally, would you like to convey something to the people who are aspiring to lead the Indian Armed Forces the way you have?
See, I am in a all women's college. I will only exhort you people to give it a try, because you asked a question earlier, about the opening up of avenues for women in the armed forces. Sky is the limit for you people, and armed forces want young, highly motivated and spirited youngsters, particularly women, in all the three services. You've been given access to fighter aircraft, you've been even given access to warships, and almost all verticals of the Indian Army is open to you. So you should aspire to join in large numbers. And for those of you who are not able to contribute directly, there are many other methods by which you can contribute, something which both of you are as it is doing, taking the message of the good work done by the armed forces to the school children and the society of tomorrow. And if you reach some position in industry, try and collaborate with the research institutions to see how best you can contribute towards the fine tuning the technology of armed forces.
Thank you so much for this interview, sir. I'm sure your words will inspire millions out there. But most importantly, let's take this moment to thank the Indian Army for their countless sacrifices. Like Sir rightfully mentioned, they give their today for our tomorrow. Let us take this moment to remember and cherish their sacrifices.